There was a version of football history where Neymar, not Messi, not Ronaldo, sits alone at the top. For a few years, that future looked inevitable. Coaches called him the most gifted teenager they had ever seen. Defenders said he was impossible to read. By the time he was 20, Pelé himself was comparing him to nobody else, because there was nobody else like him. And then it started slipping away. Not all at once, a little at a time. A metatarsal here, a vertebra there, a knee that would eventually give out completely. This is not a story about a failure. Neymar won almost everything a player can win. But somewhere between Santos and Saudi Arabia, the conversation changed. From, is he the best in the world, to, what happened to him? To understand how that happened, you have to go back to a teenager in a Brazilian academy who made the sport look like something else entirely. Neymar da Silva Santos Jr. was born in February 1992 in Mogi das Cruzes, a city outside São Paulo. His father had played lower league football and became, from the beginning, his son's manager, mentor, and gatekeeper, a relationship that would follow Neymar for the rest of his career, for better and for worse. He joined Santos, the club that produced Pelé, and by 2009 he was already playing first-team football as a teenager. Within 2 years, he was the most talked-about young player on the planet. Still a teenager, he helped Santos win the Copa Libertadores, South America's version of the Champions League. Europe's biggest clubs were already circling. Real Madrid wanted him. Chelsea wanted him. The question wasn't if he would leave Brazil. It was when and for how much. That question would end up mattering more than almost anyone expected. In 2013, Neymar signed for Barcelona. On the surface, it looked simple, a generational talent joining the biggest club in the world. Underneath, it was anything but. The true cost of the transfer became the subject of investigations in both Spain and Brazil. The clubs, the player's family, and outside investors had structured the deal in a way that triggered fraud allegations and years of legal proceedings, a saga that dragged Neymar's name through courtrooms while he was still only 21 years old. On the pitch, though, something remarkable was forming. Alongside Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, Neymar became one-third of MSN, statistically, one of the most devastating attacking trios the sport has ever produced. In the 2014-15 season, that trio helped Barcelona win the treble, the league, the domestic cup, and the Champions League, all in a single year. Neymar was 23. He had already won a European treble. The trajectory pointed in one direction only, upward, toward Messi's and Ronaldo's territory at the very top of the sport. Then, in 2016, he added an Olympic gold medal with Brazil, scoring the winning penalty in a shootout final against Germany. A result that carried enormous symbolic weight for a country still processing the humiliation of their 7-1 World Cup semifinal loss to that same opponent 2 years earlier. By every measure, Neymar had become one of the 3 best footballers alive. So why did he leave Barcelona, the best team in the world, at the peak of his powers, just 2 years later? In the summer of 2017, Neymar signed for Paris Saint-Germain for a fee of €222 million. It remains, to this day, the most expensive transfer in the history of football, nearly double the previous record. The move split opinion instantly. To some, it was ambition, a chance to leave Messi's shadow and become the undisputed leader of his own project. To others, it was the beginning of the end. What followed was a career increasingly defined by 2 competing storylines running side by side, brilliance and a growing list of injuries and controversies that started to eat into the moments he had left at the top. A broken metatarsal disrupted his first World Cup as PSG starman in 2018, and his habit of going down under contact turned him, fairly or not, into one of the tournament's most mocked figures. Tension with a younger, faster-rising teammate, Kylian Mbappé, became a recurring storyline at PSG as questions grew over who the club's true leader was. And every season, it seemed, another injury arrived at the worst possible moment. By the early 2020s, the pattern was undeniable. At the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, Neymar suffered an ankle injury in Brazil's opening match and had to fight to get back for the knockout stages, only for Brazil to be eliminated by Croatia on penalties, in what many assumed at the time would be his final World Cup. In 2023, he left Europe entirely, joining Al Hilal in the Saudi Pro League. Then that October, while on international duty against Uruguay, he suffered a torn ACL and meniscus in his knee, one of the most severe injuries a footballer can sustain. He was 31 years old. He would not play for Brazil again for more than 2 years. While he recovered, the sport moved on without him. Messi kept adding trophies in America. Mbappe moved to Real Madrid. A new generation, Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham, Lamine Yamal, took over the conversation about who the best player in the world actually was. Neymar, once part of that conversation by right, became something else. A cautionary tale about what injuries, money, and off-field distraction can cost even the most talented player alive. It's worth asking, carefully, what might have been different. What if Neymar had stayed at Barcelona instead of chasing the world record transfer to Paris? In January 2025, Neymar returned to where it all began, Santos, the club of his childhood, the club of Pelé. In December that year, he underwent knee surgery again. And in 2026, more than 2 years after his last appearance for Brazil, Carlo Ancelotti recalled him for a fourth World Cup, a comeback that itself had to survive one more injury scare before it even started. Neymar never became the undisputed greatest of all time. But for a handful of seasons, at Santos, at Barcelona, on that August night in Rio in 2016, he played the sport like no one else alive. The story of Neymar was never really about a lack of talent. It was about how much talent can survive contact with real life, and how history remembers genius that got interrupted rather than genius that got to finish.